okay. I am okay.
We're live.
It's been
No.
Oh, it's just said you're live.
it has been a very long year. It's been a very long and sad year.
Well, he's not.
Yeah.
See him in the waiting room right now.
You know, Central Falls, the only advertising that my parents have seen in CF is the mayor posting about the elections. Yeah.
Okay, and then I told him to just put the other
Yeah.
one. when it
So my
comes
parents were
not
like,
gonna
"Am I
do it
supposed to go
today.
vote?" I was like, "Yes, go."
back.
The Zoom's gonna be done from there. Don't do the Zoom on there. We're gonna do it here. Yeah. So just open the PowerPoint.
Right, so
Open the. You can just finish opening the PowerPoint. Should be good.
Oh, I forgot to bring in my son was in the Camden's in the Beacon.
We know it's that.
Beacon last week.
Camera back?
Yep, that's good. Took care of that.
We're waiting for you.
Sorry.
No, don't
Oh,
be
yeah,
sorry.
waiting for Ray too, more than I.
Just what-
Yeah.
Great. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairwoman Johnson,
Present.
Vice Chairman DeSimone,
Present.
Member Bettenker.
Here.
Member Connors,
Present.
Member Jackoni,
Present.
Member Reposa,
Present.
Member Scholes, Executive Director Miguel Nunez,
Present.
Legal Counsel Ray McCartio.
Yes, present.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And also, I know we all are aware, but for the sake of anyone from the public joining us, want to acknowledge that Bob Raposa will be succeeding Diane Medeiros as our new board member. So welcome, Bob. Thank you for being here. And we'll move on to agenda number 1. The board may hear and consider any election matter that requires an immediate ruling or determination arising from the special primary election for Senate District 4, Providence and North Providence, and special election Central Falls City Council and special referendum pursuant to Title 17 of the Rhode Island General Laws. And Director, I think you'll let us know if we are having any issues or if all is well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, honorable members of the board. I am happy to report that I do not have any issues to report in today's special election that would require an immediate ruling or determination by the board. However, I would like to provide a brief summary on the overall progress of the election here on Election Day on July 8th. There have been no equipment issues. We have had the typical minor issues, particularly in Senate 4 with the violation of the 50-foot rule. Got some calls about signage along Mineral Spring Avenue, or lots of candidate signage along Mineral Spring Avenue. Those are not items that pertain to the Board of Elections as far as signage. We only regulate signage within the 50 feet of the actual polling place. Anything outside of that, we direct the local board to their local ordinances, which would be enforced by a local police department. If it's something that's on private property, it would have to do with the property owner. If it's on public property, obviously that would have to do with town rules and ordinances. If there is signage along state roadways or state highways, the Department of Transportation has a rule and regulation on how to manage those. And that is something that we have a phone number that we provide to them to call the DOT if it's something like on a state road or at the end of one of the exit ramps. In terms of the 50-foot rule, that's Statute 17-1949. As many of you know who've been involved with elections for many years, that has always been a sort of contentious statute in terms of clarity, who is allowed to go into the polling place, who is not allowed to go into the polling place. And over the years, in interpreting that statute, the rule has been followed that as long as someone is going in and not campaigning, as long as they don't have anything on their person, or such as political signage or distributing anything, they're not in technical violation of 17-1949. That's how it's been interpreted over the years. But if someone has any leaflets that they are passing out, or if they have any signage, if they're a candidate, they have any signage on them, then they're asked to take that off. A lot of times candidates would like to go into the polling place to ask how many voters have voted. That is perfectly fine under the statute, according to the interpretation over the years. It is a public election. So there are runners, checkers, and watchers, which are regulated under the law, but it is a public process. So there are observers allowed to be inside that polling place. So if someone wants to just be in there and observe what's going on, that has always been the interpretation that is allowed because it is an open and public process and there's no prohibition against that. The 17-1949 regulates the distribution and display of political literature and paraphernalia within 50 feet. And that's where the board comes into play. For voters themselves, they are allowed to come in with stickers, paraphernalia, as long as they're not distributing it and they take it out with them when they leave. They don't leave it in the voting booth. And that has been the interpretation for the past 20 years or so. So that has been pretty much the entire morning, my morning, with phone calls on the 1749 and the 50-foot rule and the placement of signage in the town. So as far as a brief summary, as of a few minutes ago, as you can see there on the screen, 716 of the 9,992 eligible voters in Senate District 4 have voted for an approximate turnout of 7.1% voting on election, at the polls on Election Day. 562 voters voted during the early voting period for the Senate 4 special primary. We have received 529 of the 699 mail ballots requested by voters, with 170 ballots still outstanding. We actually, just a few minutes ago, just completed the tabulation of all the mail ballots that we have in the building up until this point for Senate District 4. In Central Falls, only 59 voters have cast ballots at the polls thus far, for an approximate turnout of just 0.6%. 54 voters voted during the early voting period, which again also ended at 4 p.m. yesterday. And that's a 6.6% turnout at the polls on Election Day. We have received 25 of the 33 mail ballots that were requested by voters. We still have 7 that are outstanding. And again, we did complete tabulation of those 25 mail ballots this afternoon, a few moments ago. Overall, the board has had a staff of 4 staff members deployed to the 7 polling places in North Providence, Providence, and Central Falls. And again, there were no equipment issues or other issues to report. As you recall, we are running the pilot for the ballot on demand, which is the first time the state has operated a vote center in the state for a special election, for a Title 17 election. And that has gone fairly smoothly. We did have some hiccups, which I'll provide in a report to the board. But with some of the communication, nothing was impacted in terms of voters not being able to vote. Every voter that went in was able to vote. But the seamless process of getting the ballot printed from when the voter checked in to the ballot printing automatically behind the poll workers, which is supposed to occur without any poll worker interaction, that was interrupted a couple of times. And knowing the company does have a technician here on site the whole day, so they've been troubleshooting that. It's resolved by just walking over to the printer and just manually choosing on the pad there to print that ballot manually. So it wasn't voting was not disrupted in any way for the on-demand printing, but that is something that we're going to look at when we sit down and look at providing an after-action report for the board and how the pilot went in Central Falls. As usual, we will begin receiving the results from the polling places and the early voting sites shortly after 8 p.m. tonight. As you can see on the screen here, the results will be available for viewing on our website. Something new that we are trying for this election is we're hoping to have an interactive map display. We've been working with the developer where we'll show the turnout in different areas of the district in Central Falls and in Senate District 4. That's something that we haven't been able to do, but we've been able to do with some of the GIS technology and using actually the data that the Secretary of State's office has been compiling with the GIS data that eventually will be implemented into the CBRS. But we're using it for mapping purposes for the results. So that's something that we wanted to demonstrate today. So I encourage the board members and everyone in the public to go check that out and see if there is anything there that you think could use improvement and provide feedback on that new feature. Other than that, that concludes my Election Day report for the special elections occurring today in Senate District 4 and in Central Falls Council 4 District and the special referendum in Central Falls. I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Thanks, Miguel. Quick question on the Senate District 4. What's the total percentage of combined with mail ballots, early voting, and same day?
Same
What is
day,
it
so
around?
we're going to end up around 10%, 10 to
Okay.
12%.
And how does that compare? I know there's not been a special in this particular district for some time, but for other, I'm just curious.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah.
For Senate and General Assembly, we generally will get 10 to 15%.
Okay.
And in some of these smaller town referendums, we barely ever break 10% for those. But for General Assembly contests, there are usually more candidates involved. They're out pushing mail ballots. They're out encouraging people to vote. So generally, they're more active. So we do get a higher turnout in those elections. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got closer to 15% for overall for the
Yeah,
election.
okay. Anyone else have questions for Miguel?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just really interested about the map. That's really cool. And so it's the goal to do that, like to continue doing that this year if we have more special elections or with elections coming up.
The goal would be to do it for
For, like-
all special elections, including the elections next year, the statewide elections.
Really? Oh, that
But
would
so
be
we're
awesome.
moving on from the platform that we've been using
Mhm.
for the past 2 decades with Do It and the internal process that we were using with them, and we're actually going to go out to a request for a proposal for election night reporting, and that's something that we want to have in place before the September primary of 26.
That's right.
That's
Because
great.
it's statewide. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Miguel, from a standpoint of this evening, will you be posting results all at once? Are you posting early first, mail, like what's going to be the mechanism, so to speak?
So we hope to post mail ballots immediately. So our hope is to just post them as soon as 8 o'clock comes around. So that's something that we have the capability of doing. It's a little bit different than in the statewide primary and elections where we have so much information coming in at the same time and we have to switch tracks with the mail ballots that we want to wait a little bit for the regular polling places to stabilize. But in these smaller elections, we're able to push the mail ballots out fairly quickly right after 8 o'clock.
And then will it be early voting and today's vote together, or are you going to post them separately?
It will be everything. Everything that has been counted, early voting, election day, and mail ballots. We still will have outstanding, a few categories of ballots. We have Dropbox ballots that are placed into the Dropbox by 8 o'clock tonight. Those will have to be picked up tomorrow by our staff, so we'll count those tomorrow. And then we may have a handful of ballots that are either deficient, that have to be cured, or UACAB, military and overseas, but there are not that many of those.
Thank you. Yes.
You know, I have a question, but before I ask you a question, Miguel, I want to welcome Bob as a member of the board. I want to point out that this is a milestone appointment, because it's the first time ever that I can think of where a former director becomes a member of the board, on which he formerly served as an executive director or in a management position.
Thank you.
I think it was an important and significant appointment by the governor. I commend the governor and the state senate for for nominating you and approving the appointment. I think the board is stronger and better off with you on the board, and I think that you will be able to show us what can be done based upon your experience and expertise and typical lifetime of knowledge of electioneering. And I'd like to point out that Bob has volunteered to be a member of this board. Okay, he could have been retired, okay, fishing or do whatever a retiree would do, but he's here to be with us, to be part of this team. So, Bob, thank you very much for for volunteering for this position. We're glad to have you.
And I want to thank the commissioner for saying that, because I was going to ask to show him around, but I guess he knows his way around.
He might, yeah.
Right, I think he has a pass too.
He knows,
So he's
he
all
knows
set.
his way.
Right. And also you have the picture photo, so you're all set.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Miguel, I have a question to ask you. I mean, you talked about the demand printing. Okay. Was that just one machine you had at Central Falls, or was there a couple of machines?
So we have one printer at Central Falls. We have 2 electronic poll books, 2 receipt printers attached to those that go to the voter. And we have backup ballots as well. So we have a package of backup pre-printed ballots there to be distributed. In the event the printer goes down, we have that backup set of ballots that are utilized in case there is any issue with the printer. But fortunately, there have been no issues with the printer. Other than the fact that they were not printing automatically, but the printing was actually occurring perfectly fine.
I know Central Falls had a difficult time trying to find a candidate for that position. So I think it's probably reflected in the low turnout.
Yes. And I just did some quick math there, and we're already at 18% in Senate 4. So, yeah, so we probably will end up about 23-24% for the day.
Thanks, Miguel. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda Agenda item number 2, the board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of June 3rd, 2025. We've received the minutes and had a chance to review. So with that, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor,
Wait,
signify.
actually,
Oh,
just-
sorry, go ahead.
Just, I think there's an extra paragraph in the last page. Because it looks like it ends, looks like there's a paragraph that says Vice Chairman, I don't know if it's just my copy, but I assume not.
Yeah,
I think that, if we could just strike that paragraph in the minutes. I think it's just a leftover from a previous.
Oh,
that's
to
what
adjourn.
it was left over.
okay, so we'll strike that from the minutes. And we will approve it with that strike. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Madam Chair?
opposed? Yes.
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
I will
on that
abstain as
point.
well because I was not here.
I will as well.
And Bob was not here. But those that are here approve the minutes. So motion passes. And with hearing no other business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? The ayes have it. We are adjourned at 4:26 PM.